Hello, everyone. I'm Lori. Welcome back to Milkweeds and Roses. Buddy says hi, too. This has got to be my favorite time of year, or at least we're getting close. I love fall. The days of wandering the garden with a hot cup of tea, weeding whatever's left, but also just enjoying this sort of last hurrah of summer with a lot of things that are in bloom. I'm realizing as I'm walking around that actually a lot of the plants I've chosen that I've planted are for fall blooming, which the pollinators love, which hummingbirds love. Things are just looking glorious. So it's a good time to show you how things are looking in my little corner of the world anyway, here in late September. All right, are you ready? Are you ready? What do you think, bud? You ready? He's ready. Let's go. Let's begin with morning glory. Now, this isn't everybody's cup of tea. I grow this because it reminds me of our Century Farm. We had like a big stand of this on our farm gate. It was in pretty blue and also pink, but I love the way it greets the morning. And I do find hummingbirds and butterflies on this. You have to stay on top of the little seedlings, though, because the saying goes, once you plant morning glory, you're going to always have it. And that is true. And it can pop up anywhere. But if you have a fence you want to cover or an arch that's hard to cover, I think it's a nice bet. And it can grow just about anywhere. I have trimmed it back here a little bit because, again, it's kind of a thug. It just kind of takes over. But I do love the way it greets the morning and that beautiful blue with the soft pink on the inside. Nothing seems to match it. But I do look, though, and keep track of the seedlings down below. But he's doing the same here. And these are marigolds that I pinched from another plant that I just tossed over here, and they're growing. So they are good to repel rabbits and other things. Tangutica, which was here, it didn't come back after it had sudden dieback. That happens. But I do believe that the roots are still alive, so I might see it again in the spring. But in the meantime, the blue light clematis that is next to it, that's still green and growing. I'm not expecting a second flush, but hey, at least it's there. So some of the other things that are behind here, I do like this. It's a nice host plant, Veronia lettermanii, iron butterfly. And it's pretty dry up here on the top of this ledge, but it really doesn't mind. So I just like how this clump just gets bigger and bigger every year, and it blooms late enough to keep the monarchs fueled up and bees fueled up. There aren't too many things that do that this time of year. Now my dahlias are finally starting to bloom. I kind of underwhelmed at least growing them in this pot. Uh, I'm happy to see the color. The bees are happy to visit it. But I think next year I'm gonna just probably keep dahlias to the garden beds instead of containers. My blackberry, thornless blackberry back here, putting on a lot of growth finally, but no flowers, no fruits. I think that does take a couple of years to do so. This is a host plant for monarch butterflies. The seed pods are developing. A lot of them have already taken flight. So it looks kind of ragged this time of year, but it is a good host plant for monarchs. And I find little seedlings down below growing, and that's where I found some monarch caterpillars. Here's another lettermanii growing on the bottom. I think it seeded itself, frankly, because I don't remember planting that. Gertrude Jekyll Rose did put on 2 flushes, even though she's just about a year and a half old. Ferns love it, damp, and this spring was certainly damp. August, when it dried out and hardly rained at all, it wasn't real happy there. But and there's the only sedge I seem to be able to grow, which is right there. My anemone, the robustissima. First, I thought that this was Honorine Jobert. She was in there, but I don't see her now. But this robustissima is a nice, pretty pink color. It appreciates it's another one of those late bloomers. I see a lot of butterflies and bees on this thing. And yeah, see, like I said, I did not plant the morning glory here, but I have taken a lot of it out, but I've left it here because the bullseye rose that's in there is pretty much done for the year. And so is Blue Fortune Agastaki at this point. Still a few little bees going around there. There are some buds, so I will take that a little bit later. Just take it down and leave it there, mostly to the ground or to the top of the ledge anyway. And going around the corner here, my swamp azalea looking a little ragged, but I think it might just be this time of year. You know, she's winding down. And the hostas didn't appreciate the dry August that we had, so they're a little scorched there, the ones that were in the sun. And going around the corner, the coneflower that planted itself, there's a late blooming hosta. It got pretty dry in August, and we were under an irrigation watering ban, so I didn't do it, and the hostas showed it. They get a lot of sun here, and they would need some moisture, and if they don't get it, they fry on the edges. But they're still alive, and their bloom spikes are over, so I've trimmed those down. I find little chipmunks nestling under there when it does rain. The swamp milkweed has gone over, some of the pods remain, but check out some of the types of false sunflowers are looking good. Buddy thinks so too. I had repeat blooms on the daylily, that's the Stelladoro there in the back, the yellow. Cookies and cream, the flowers are done, but the foliage still looks kind of pretty, doesn't it? I love that cranberry. And speaking of looking good, boy, the Hepicodium 7 sunflower, which I am working on trimming it up, limbing it up to be a tree form, but it's got a few limbs down below. Look at the pretty peeling bark. You can see what's a multi-interest tree, but a lot of pollinators on these flowers as they open, pretty little white flowers. And then once those drop, there are little red brackets. So they're even more impressive, and that makes it look like it's blooming again. Hyacinth, red bean hyacinth vine, hasn't flowered yet, and it's kind of partial to the neighbor's fence. But I do like the red tinged foliage. It will be impressive when it does bloom. It's fine with me that it kind of grabbed the 7 sunflower, the Hepicodium. And my rose here is, looking, this is Henry Kelsey, looking better than it has most of the year. So I think it likes finally the moisture that has just come. And high wire flyer, meanwhile, is, wow, liking its spot. Its bloom should be done by now. I haven't deadheaded it because it's September and you need to teach it to slow down a bit because this new growth, this red foliage, is vulnerable when frost comes. Now, I don't expect frost for another month, which is why having a little bit of color here in this upper north damp garden is so nice. Now, I would like to show you a little more of the garden that's in there. There's an alchemist rose. Kind of climbing the fence, but of course now with Buddy on the loose, yeah, I gotta call him back. He's gonna get into trouble in there, so try to keep him close. Little Joe, Red Joe pieweed. I actually like this better than the standard pieweed. This still gets about 4.5 to 5 feet tall, but the stems that were red and the flowers were more red than regular Joe pieweed, which gets to be like 12 feet tall. But I do like this, and so do bees and pollinators and butterflies. And I'll just leave this up until early spring, like February, March, or April, and then cut it back because a lot of pollinators like to winter over in those hollow stems. I'll take down the hostas because they just turn to slime. My tobacco plant, which I know it wasn't planted early enough in here to actually get a nice spike of white flowers, but the foliage looks nice. And it's kind of helps rabbit proof this area because they go after the hostas that are in here. That's why you'll see the cages. They're in jail because otherwise they'll just eat them down to nubs. This other type of hosta, though, that blooms so late that's more fragrant, they don't go after. I see now, yeah, see, the dogs know that there is a family of rabbits back in there. So that's why they are, investigating under the neighbor's air conditioner. But yeah, they leave these hostas alone. And dianthus, they leave alone. That's planted on the other end. Some of the other things. This is hot cocoa rose that I transplanted from my big driveway container, putting on some new growth. See that red foliage there? That's some new growth. So that should be doing pretty well. And I think that was a type of aster. I've got two purple asters I'm also going to put in this front tree mound bed to just kind of balance out the pinks and the corals and the warm colors. And I think it'll also complement this grass. There's actually three little quart-sized grasses that I put in there, and we'll see if they come back for the spring. But a lot of this I just leave up. I take the hostas down when the frost comes. And my Tupelo, my black gum majestic with its shiny leaves, still growing. They're not a real fast grower, but it is the type of tree that has a deeper taproot, so planting beneath it is possible. It will be a shade tree. It'll be like, 30 feet tall, not a monster or anything, but I think it'll be nice by the time it all is coming together. And it's supposed to have real pretty fall red leaves. And speaking of red leaves and fall, I'm starting my fall decorations here. This is my driveway container garden. So those are those blue asters that I will put in the tree mound. But I like to tuck just little, you can get them for $1, little pumpkins that you can find. I went to a pumpkin farm recently with a bunch of girlfriends. And yeah, I just kind of put them in some of my containers. So with the decorative peppers and some of these other things and the hyacinth, my coleus, and that's just spent foliage from crocosmia, but it just sort of ties it all together. And the purple fountain grass. And this is another one of those marigolds that just popped up, but it's blooming. I like it. Stand By Me clematis has just bloomed all year. I trim off the spent heads and it goes. And check out Lady in Red. Isn't that the most perfect bud? I would love to bring these inside, but I avoid trimming roses at this time of year. Lady in Red just put on some nice hips, though. And this is spent Louise Clement's rose. But again, I just leave them up here until the frost. And wedding dress actually looks better in the fall than it does all summer because the buds have a nice little pink tinge to them. Otherwise, in the summer, they just seem to sort of have reflex petals, almost pointy looking. But the open stamens are great for pollinators. Witness for the prosecution here. But yeah, it really, the bees love that type of flower, that type of rose, easy to access. And they have to work a little harder to get to the stamens in here, but you can see, boy, where there's a will, there's a way. This is English Miss. I just planted her this spring, and this is like her third flush of flowers. Not a lot of thorns on this rose. Seems real healthy and strong. So I would say English Miss is a winner in my garden. Now this is my hardy mum, chrysanthemum, confetti, that I planted last spring. I did trim it back in June to make it bush out a little bit more. It's still a tall one, but I think it's going to be real pretty and complement these cone flowers here that I also planted that I got real cheap at a big box store. But I think that's a nice companion color here. And then I have some more salvia, and here is Joyful Investment Dahlia finally blooming. And again, bees love this. So do monarchs. This guy's a little frustrated because it's not quite ready. It's not quite open yet. But they do love the yellow open stamens. So he'll just fly to the next one. He's got opportunity. He's got choices. But it's a tall dahlia. It needs to be staked. But I like the way the red balances the little red birdhouse here, which is kind of cute. And I put that birdhouse there because I want to encourage little bug catchers to nest in my garden and raise their young and look for bugs. Rock and Round Pure Joy Sedum is definitely fun and pink. It's short and really just a fun little plant. I like that sedum. A lot of buds on my favorite rose. which I have not identified and keep looking. We'll see what it is. The tag fell off long ago, but I've had it about 6, 8 years. Meant to be raspberry agastaki, looking good. And this also had a lot of pollinators on it. I've trimmed it back like 3 times. But again, I love the pinks in here. And my Nepenthe should have trimmed back a lot earlier. It might get a second or third flush. Meanwhile, another sedum, so pretty in there. I love the color. And that is my milkweed, swamp milkweed, which is forming seeds. This is a host plant for monarchs. I haven't seen them on there, but they do fuel up. They do like the flowers. They've been on my milkweed plants and other ones, but these pretty little seeds catch the wind and they can just about be anywhere. So you can pull the seedlings you don't want if they come up in the wrong spot, but I had to prop this one up a bit because it was kind of a sprawler, and then you couldn't see that pretty sedum behind it. I might have to stake that up. Those, because butterflies need to find those, and bees. And the sweet autumn clematis has gone over. Still a few little rose petals popping out here. You know, it looks like, this is what it looked like a little bit earlier, just popping out at the top of that sweet autumn clematis. But it's like it's a little breeze comes in, it's like it's snowing. All those little seeds dropping, all those little petals dropping. And tucked in there is a tall garden phlox, which I need to deadhead, just snip off the top. But yeah, when you see it look like that, you can trim it down to the next set of leaves, and you should get another flush like I have there. But it's kind of nice, this frothy sort of look. And over in the distance, seeing the crab apples. That's what it looks like up close, but isn't that a nice, pretty color? Just love this time of year. Signs of fall. They're heading south. What a bummer. But so still plenty of color to enjoy this fall, and I hope you're out there doing it. I look forward to seeing you next time here on Milkweeds and Roses Gardener. If you have any questions or any comments, be sure to let me know. And I do hope you subscribe to the channel. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.